Welcome, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Commander Teresa Carpenter, and this is the fifth, I believe, iteration of the Navy Public Affairs Eastern Region Mentoring Group. And we meet monthly online, and we talk to communication experts who have a little bit of knowledge to share about our craft and ways that we can all improve our game and understand what each other does. So today I am super excited to have Lieutenant Chelsea Dietlin. And did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Yes, yes. Very special thanks to a couple friends of mine who helped me with that one. But she is the Blue Angels PAO. So I'll give you a little bit of her background, and then I'm going to turn it over to her to talk a little bit more about it. And I've got some questions for her, and then I'm going to open it up for you guys to ask some questions as well. So she is the squadron's public affairs officer. She advises the squadron on public affairs policies, opportunities, and the production of all public material, manages the media relations. She goes on travel with them all over the country where they do their flight demonstrations. And she not only was a public affairs officer for the Navy, she also had prior experience with NPACE East, where she went on multiple deployments on Arlington, Abraham Lincoln, and other vessels. She also worked as a civilian public affairs practitioner in firms in Washington, D.C. and New York City prior to coming into the Navy. So she did wealth and asset management PR and contract work for multiple federal level individual and issue campaigns. So super excited to have you on the show today, Chelsea, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the kind opening there, ma'am. Glad to be here and glad to talk with everyone.
Awesome. So I'm just going to start off with what inspired you to become a Blue Angels PAO? How'd you hear about the program and why did you decide to do it?
Certainly. So I came from a sort of community outreach background, at least in my civilian experience prior to the Navy. And, part of that with working on campaigns was getting on the ground and talking with folks who some of these policies impacted directly. And I found that work to be incredibly rewarding. And when I joined the Blue Navy, rather, I was kind of evaluating the different opportunities to, get close to that experience, if not just for part of my Navy career. And, the work that we conduct on the Blue Angels and various community outreach programs in the DoD kind of replicate that similar sort of on the ground experience where you're talking with folks directly. And, it's very unique to the rest of sort of the tours that you're going to experience in your Navy career, in that, quite often we're out in the deployed environment or in our austere spaces, or we're floating around in the middle of the ocean in the ship, and we don't necessarily get to see the results of our work, right? We just kind of trust that we accomplished the mission or communicated the right things properly. But we don't get to often see that direct feedback from the public. And this job is definitely incredibly rewarding in seeing, public reaction to your work, particularly when we have our crowdline engagements or, working with different organizations, youth organizations, and just seeing the inspiration factor there to go on and do great things with their own lives or inspire to service. So I think that's what originally drew me to the Blue Angels. And then I think the second part of that is then when I came and started moving through the application process, I, learned there was so much more to just that. There is, this culture of excellence and aspiration to, perfection and, self-improvement and humility, and the team environment here really it's the people. And I feel like we always say that is why do you stay, what inspires you? And it's the environment that the team cultivates. And it's really exciting, to see, everyone be in an environment where they can grow, accomplish their goals. They have a space to explore creative, mission, execution options. I mean, particularly with this past year in the COVID environment. So I think the two parts, right? There was the originally drew me in, and then, it's kind of, evolved into and kept me here is that team culture.
Yes, it's such a unique assignment in the Navy, and most of us will never get to experience what you're getting to experience. And you bring up a great point that the home front sees what you're doing, and you get that feedback from the stuff that we're doing out in the fleet, which I think uniquely positions you to get a perception of how the U.S. domestically sees what we're doing. And a lot of us, I can tell you, even with my operational experience, I haven't seen a lot of that. I'm wondering when you applied, what was that process like for you, and what did you have to do? I know you had to fly to Pensacola, I want to say, and had to go through a series of interviews. Is that correct?
It is. It's a very immersive process, which you don't quite, you don't really, follow that same process with our other jobs. And normally it's we talk to the detailer, maybe talk to some of the folks who've held that position previously, and that's about as robust of an experience you get for finding most of your billets. But this one, there is, I would say it's about an 8-month commitment. And I see Lieutenant Commander Joe Hans on the line, and he can definitely echo the experiences here, which I'm kind of walking through from just my seat here. But I mean, you start out the application period, the application submission window starts usually January, February of the current year and runs through April. And with that, you're going to provide a letter of request to apply to the team. You're going to get a CO's endorsement. You're going to fill out probably it's like a 3-page short answer, sort of essay question, talking about why do you want to be a Blue Angel, and standard interview questions with what do you on your self-evaluation define as your weaknesses and strengths. And you're going to get letters of recommendation. You're going to provide a resume, your history of qualifications and experiences in a bio. And for anyone who's on the line and interested in applying, you can actually go to blueangels.navy.mil/join, and you'll see our application guide as well as the nav admins for the hiring process, which provide templates for all those items that I just listed off. So open application period usually runs March through April, ends and closes Marchish, Aprilish, depending on the year. And then from there, usually from the start of the show season, which for us began in March of this year, or the application window for in-person visits, March through June, you'll go and visit the team at their show sites. So, we recommend, heading out two to three shows for your application period. I know Lieutenant Commander Hans, because he was overseas, he went to one show, and that's very normal for a lot of our applicants. Last year our format was 100% virtual. So we're definitely able to flex with the times and, work with interested candidates. So if you don't feel that you can support, 2 to 3 show site visits over that short period of time, then we definitely want to work with you. And from the in-person show site visits, you're going to go, the team will select about 2-3 finalists for each position that is open and hiring for that year. Then finalists will be invited on TAD orders down to our home station here in Pensacola, Florida, where you'll have a very immersive Blue Angels experience. You'll interact with current team member families, and you'll have those formal and informal engagements, just interacting with the team. You'll have some role in maybe a community outreach event that's happening that week, and it'll all culminate into a boardroom style final interview with all of the current officers. And then from there, usually that following week, we'll make the final selections, and then the report date for new team members will be September of that year. So all in all, from starting
Wow.
your application and deciding you're interested to be a Blue Angel officer through when you report is about a 9-month period.
Wow.
So mhm.
I was to say it's quite a process, but because you guys are in such a high visibility and very stressful job, it goes without saying that those are all the things that need to be done. I'm curious, because you've been at this billet for quite some time, and you're getting ready to transfer. Can you think of any particular moments that stand out when you were interacting with the public? Some sort of an engagement that you did or an encounter that was just like, wow, I really can't believe this is my job. I mean, I would think that you would just have those kinds of encounters all the time on the road.
Mhm. Well, we've certainly had a very unique show season. I'm sure many of you were tracking that. All of our air shows for the 2020 show season were canceled. So we had to get very creative with that community outreach mission. So we were able to continue our flying practice schedule. There was there's a proficiency requirement for all of our pilots and maintainers. But the one big gap in our ability to execute our mission is that community outreach, that in-person engagement. But that was much like the rest of the world, is figuring out how to do your job in the COVID world. And, when you're talking about those meaningful touch points with the public, yeah, that certainly is what keeps you going. You're like, wow, this is wild. I can't believe I'm here. And I mean, those moments, to be honest, they're every day. And that's interacting with my team members, that's interacting with those that reach out over email or those in the community. But I guess a campaign in particular was the America Strong flyover series that we conducted last year with the Thunderbirds. So, with that, some senior leaders over in both service branches, we're looking at the tools in their arsenal saying, hey, how can we still push the community outreach mission, but do it safely, not only for our team members, but our communities and of course our family and friends. And, thus was the flyover series was born. And, for those in particular, the idea was we targeted cities and geographical areas that, according to the CDC, had been hardest hit by the pandemic at the time. And, reaching out to the civic entities involved. It was everything from the mayor's, governor's offices, the police forces in those communities. We called every single hospital that we were flying to over our flyover route to let them know the exact 5-minute window that we would be overhead. And these were hundreds of hospitals, and this was not only me, this was my entire public affairs team and also the Thunderbirds public affairs team, just calling hundreds of hospitals. And those were just incredible opportunities to engage in a time that was near impossible to have a community touch point. And hearing, and I think there was a lot of questioning as if this was the right way to execute our mission. And then, when we got on those phone calls and we heard the feedback, and then, of course, when we conducted the flyovers and saw the videos on Instagram, it was so rewarding to see the positive feedback and that we could do something that is saluting those who are currently on the front lines, who are responding to this crisis. And I think, just something very small and might, help brighten those folks' day was very touching and very rewarding.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And what a way to just for them to honor the military, the first responders, that is, and then for us to show our appreciation. And you're right, like everybody in the military right now, we're all adjusting to the new COVID world, and it's amazing that you guys found ways to adjust and to adapt. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, to pivot towards sort of your day to day, one of the things you told me when we were talking is that a lot of your duties are not just public affairs. And I found that to be incredibly interesting. You're very immersed within the Blue Angels team. And can you give me a little bit about how you go about that and what that looks like?
Certainly. So historically, I would say probably 60 to 70% of your days are dedicated towards the safe execution of the demo. And for support officers, the non-flyers, we all have roles as safety observers. We are on the ground communicating environmentals to the pilots. We're in the tower, making sure during an air show, the traffic on the field is maintained or controlled. Same thing with the airspace. And as a PAO and a non-aviation background, all of that has to be learned. So when you join the team in September, you have about a 3-month shadow period with the current PA or the current PAO. So I'm sorry, it's like a 2-month pass down period, which is unheard of in the Navy, definitely. So that is incredibly fortunate. But from November to the end of the winter training period in El Centro, California, which we just wrapped up here, which is about mid-March, you're learning those safety observer roles. So for the public affairs officer in particular, you are the only support officer that is qualified in all 3 safety observer positions. So there is a lot of time spent on learning how to fill those roles. So, in the examples that I provided to you, ma'am, earlier, where, you're at show center, what we call the communication cart, the comm cart, and there you got a grade sheet, and it dissects every single maneuver that is conducted in the air show, and they are broken down into 4 or 5 parts per maneuver, and it'll say, hey, you're meeting your FAA requirements, you're hitting your right altitude, the tightness and the unity of the formation looks good. So yeah, it's the safety and also aesthetics component. So that's one role. And then there is the air traffic control tower representative. You're the Blue Angels liaison, so you'll head up to the air traffic control tower, and you will work with the team up there to make sure airspace is deconflicted, the airfield movement is deconflicted. And then the last one is what we call relay. That's another role over at the communication cart, that you're flashing lights, you're talking with the folks in the tower, you've got eyes on the airspace, making sure we don't have any rogue aviation entities entering. So that is a very unusual part of the job, but we do all have collateral duties in our roles, wherever we are in the fleet. Ours is just very aviation focused here.
Well, I think it's amazing and just total rock star. It's great. There isn't any other job in the Navy as a public affairs officer that you're going to get that level of depth into acrobatics for aviation. So I just think it's such an invaluable opportunity as not only a Navy officer, not only as a communicator, but just as an American citizen. It's something I think one day if you have them, you'll tell your grandkids about. It's just what a neat thing to get to do in your lifetime. What I'm also wondering is, as a communicator, we're very it's very emphasized in our community, especially now, to use a strategic communications plan that has all the elements of RPI, which is, of course, just one framework to look at a communication plan from a measurable objective and research and evaluation. And so I'm curious, since you've been there, what kind of campaigns have you looked to execute from sort of that RPI standpoint?
Definitely. So, as we broached here at the beginning is, I did have that civilian experience. And when I came to independent duty stations such as the Blue Angels, we don't have our safety net of mentors in the immediate vicinity, much like I did over at NPACE. So I definitely relied a lot on, sort of the planning tactics that I learned in my civilian experience, which are very similar to RPI, but with a little bit of a spin. But my first thing that I did, if we're talking about research here and the R and RPI, it was within the first few days that I took over this role. I sat down with the CO and I got a good idea of what he wanted to see with this the squadron, with his tour. So really shaping what the CO's intent was. What are his big ideas? For the Blue Angels in particular, he wrote an ethos, right? So here are the values that we're going to conduct ourselves by. And so taking all of those items that matter to our CO, and then, talking with our operational chain of command. Hey, Air Boss, CNAF, where do you guys see us? What are your lines of effort? How can we kind of, align what our boss is looking for? And Sinatra, I skipped over Sinatra, but Sinatra is our immediate echelon in command, and then Air Boss ultimately, guides those lines of effort. And then, one of the things that I like to reference with, my agency background is I do view sort of my role and a lot of other PAOs in the Navy here, or DoD, is kind of an agency format, right? So CHINFO is the agency, and then for every tour rotation that we have, we are specialists with those clients. So each command is a client function, with CHINFO being the ultimate agency source for public affairs. So what does that mean? Is ultimately I'm going to take all this operational stuff and the CO's intent and line that with our big objectives from our agency, CHINFO. So everything was about researching where the operators want us to go and aligning that with what sort of CHINFO has prioritized for communication, synchronization, and alignment, to use some nice buzzwords there. But research didn't stop there, right? So one of the other things that I've always done in every command that I've been with, that I learned from my previous experience, was conducting a very robust media audit, and a social media audit, and then also an environmental audit. So all of that is figuring out, where are we right now? So I have where we want to go, and we need to know where we are right now. So understanding and logging pretty much, hey, here are all the media clips that we have, all the media coverage that we've gleaned in the past 6 years, all the media coverage we've gleaned in 10 years. And then, particularly for us, we're hitting a milestone season in the 75th anniversary. So where along our, organization's history have we, peaked sort of in our media engagement? What does the media care about? What do people want to hear? And from there, we're able to identify, where we are succeeding in already hitting towards those goals of our CO, and where we have some gaps and where there are opportunities. So, what is the current quality of coverage that we're getting? What are the peak coverage points that we're already receiving? And then, also reaching out to the different team members that are currently on board and getting an understanding of where they are as far as PR sentiment. So like, what do you view as successful public affairs? Because I also then, if I'm going to be proposing a new idea, I have to make sure I understand the baseline of those that need to approve the idea, and where they stand. So research is huge, multifaceted. If anybody wants to talk offline about that, I could go on for hours about research. I love that stuff. And then, finally, I'm old school and put together a SWOT matrix, right? So after you put all of that research into understanding what the current environment is in media, environmental, figuring out where your strengths are, where you guys are, currently performing, your weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And then from there, I'm able to shape a robust end state, which should, mirror kind of what our CO has already outlined in his intent. And then from there, you go into the planning phase. So plan for me in particular, the way I've kind of always approached it is, how are we going to leverage media engagement? How are we going to, showcase our internal production efforts on social media or, through media? And then DV engagement. So that's kind of what we're looking at for the planning aspect of it. Let me take a little peek at my notes here. And then the other thing for planning is I look laterally. So when we hit that second phase and I have a good idea of where we want to go, where our higher echelon commands want us to, how they envision utilizing us as a tool, then I look at the commands with similar mission sets. So for us, that's NAVCO. For us, that's the recruiting district. That's the different communities that we're going into, and sort of aligning and amplifying each other's messages with the tools that we have. And then implementation, right? That's for us in particular, we get a lot of requests, and, we have a lot of really great opportunities for us to get involved, but our biggest limiter is definitely manpower. And, in all my conversations with different PAs, I would say that's pretty a common challenge that we all face, probably manpower and resources available. A lot of us deployed that would be broadband access. When you're evaluating, when you're in that implementation phase, it is, looking at those considerations, your budget, restrictions, and the policies and guidance that you also have to frame all of your planning under. And then the last one, evaluation. Evaluation is an ongoing thing here. So for us, we're constantly debriefing format, everything. So every single practice, every single flight, every time the pilots go up in the air or even taxi on the ground, they're debriefing, where were opportunities for us to improve. And that culture resonates in everything we do. So if there's an interview that's conducted, first question is PAO, like, how'd I do? And, we're providing that sort of metric way of, well, we didn't hit a message here, or yeah, you scored it. You got messages plugged in here, and there. You sounded natural. You use an anecdote. So that's like your immediate sort of feedback. And then, seeing what actually results out of media coverage. Okay, so you did a 10-minute interview and, one line was pushed through. Okay, was that because we were providing, extended responses and not sound bites? How can we kind of rework our responses? So that's kind of the evaluation at the micro level. And then, a little bit larger here is we'll send out weekly reports. So, recapping all of our planning efforts and saying, hey, based on this end state, here's what we have planned to execute. Here's how we are actually executing right now, whether we're supporting this production, we're working with this entity, tying all of that to the original plan, and then continuing to evaluate when those projects are completed, if they are meeting our end state. So it's week to week. And then obviously we've been putting together annual reports where we sit down and, we'll have a robust after action with the ready room, with the CEO, and make sure that we are, achieving what we've set out to achieve. And it's super important. And, I would say
Wow.
the most important.
Yeah, I mean, I could take so much of what you said. I mean, I love how you compared what you do to your agency experience, because I think sometimes we think what we do in the military is so different from agency. But as I deepen into what I'm doing with PRSA and some of the other organizations, you realize that there are a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of best practices that we can leverage from them as they can from us in some of the ways that we have to communicate. So I think that's great that you're able to take those type of differences or similarities and kind of compare them together and say, okay, this is sort of how I see the Navy, and you line that up with your previous experience. I'm also curious, just from a more of a human interaction, and I know you haven't been able to get a lot of those touch points, but since you've been as the Blue Angels PAO, has there been anything that surprised you or sort of changed how you saw the program based on what you knew about it before, and now that you're in it, are you like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they do this, or anything along those lines?
Absolutely. So, I mean, when I came to my first show as an applicant, when I went to my first show as an applicant, I did not know anyone. It was, I had cold called some former PAOs, Lieutenant Commander Hans being one of them, and asked some questions about, the job. And I was not very well connected with the aviation community. So every single person there was a new person. And I was definitely, nervous and, was unsure of what to expect. And I think the most impactful thing for me, and definitely changed my perspective on the process, was the person to person interaction. Is like, they're people too. They're, folks that they have served, 12, 14 years in the Navy. Some of our senior leaders, longer than that. I mean, but these are folks that are from the fleet, and these are your brothers and sisters in, the Navy and Marine Corps, and they're people too, and they all have goals, and we all have challenges. And I think what this team structure provides, and what is a very, I think, healthy environment for a command, at least a community outreach command, is that you're able to kind of be vulnerable, and you're allowed opportunities to, take, not, I don't want to say that, but you're allowed opportunities to be creative, and maybe when you fall down, you're supported in getting back up, and, you're encouraged to push yourself, and, you have an environment to celebrate your successes. So to answer your question, when I first started this whole journey, I definitely did not anticipate the support network and the mentorship sort of that you would get when you go into this job, as you are learning, from the excellence of your peers. And that is a pretty cool thing to do. And yeah, I would say that'd be the most surprising thing for me.
Yeah, you touched upon something that really is near and dear to my heart, and that is the idea that if you fail, there's people there to pick you back up. And I think a lot of times people think that in the aviation community, especially in something like an acrobatic flying team that's so precise, that everybody's just perfect. Nobody ever makes a mistake. It always happens great the first time around. And to hear you say that even in this elite team that's at the top of their game, people do make mistakes. Now, I'm not saying major safety mistakes or anything, but people are able to try things and then maybe it doesn't work or they learn from it. I mean, they say that even in the aviation community, I'm a former aviation electrician's mate, and anytime the pilots would come back from landing in the aircraft, they always go into the ready room and they debrief and they sit there and just rag on each other, like really, like in a good way, but they criticize every single landing. And I think that constant feedback that the aviators do is something that I think the SWO community and some of the other communities could really learn from. Somebody taking a constructive look at your craft, at your tactics, and giving you that opportunity to get better and to give you that feedback in real time, like the way the aviators do. I'm sure that's been inspiring for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen some things on the Blue Angels before where, I mean, the focus is on the debrief, right? So we fly for 40, 45 minutes, and then the debrief is, an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? And that is exactly going through maneuver to maneuver, that grade sheet that I talked about previously. And each individual aviator, they're also self-critiquing. And that's the to be able to successfully do that is a cultural it's a cultural thing. Like, you have to have that culture at your command, where we are open to identifying where their areas of improvement are, where the opportunities for improvement are, and that you're going to be supported to make those changes, and that also individuals are going to take the initiative to make those changes. And we have these very robust debriefs that occur every day, every flight, multiple times a day when we're out in El Centro, sometimes 3-5 times a day.
Wow.
And so it's just over and over, just admitting where we fell, and then at the end of it all, we say we're glad to be here. So at the end of the day, no matter what sort of challenges you had to face that day, you are having that self-reflection of, like, exactly what you've said before, of how impactful those community outreach opportunities are, is like the opportunity for us to be wearing this flight suit and have this crest for this moment in time, is just to remember, like, we wanted to be here, we volunteered to be here, and we're glad to be here. So
that's so cool. I'm so happy for you. I think you're just getting like this opportunity of a lifetime that you'll always remember. So I hope you're taking a zillion just personal photos, and you're keeping a good scrapbook, because you're going to go on from this job, Chelsea, and you're going to look back and be like, oh my God, that was so cool. And you're just sitting in an office somewhere. No, not that all jobs in the PAOs are just sitting in offices, but you're having one of those cool jobs, and I really am happy for you. And it sounds like you've just made the most of it. I think I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'm going to turn it over to the group. So I hope the 5 or 6 people that we have on the group have some questions. And if you don't think of them right now, well, I'm asking my last question. But my last question for you is sort of, what is it that you want to sort of pay it forward as you move on and you turn over with the next PAO? What is some of the things that you've done in your time there to build the foundation that you have that you hope will go on? Because one of the things that we PAOs don't do a good job of is we build all these great things, and then sometimes every now and again, somebody will tell me that they're still using something I created, but it's like some new person gets into the seat and just wants to redo everything, because so much of what we do is subjective. But I'd like to know some of the initiatives that you've done since you've been there and what you hope to see continue.
absolutely. I mean, that pass down is super important, especially I think in a position like this where you get up and day one you're going, the first week that you're kind of really taking charge. It's that we call it drop salute, end of season. It's the last show of the season. And that's where you're kind of working with the Boeing contractors and getting everybody's photos, their official photos that you see on the website, taking the group photos. And, you're doing that while an air show is going on and community outreach events, and everyone's families and friends are in town because it's the last air show, and it is a fire hose. And then it's, you roll right into winter training. And, for the Blue Angels, that's then getting ready to go to ICAS, the International Council of Air Shows. So it's a big group of industry folks that, all put on the air shows that you see every single year. And the talent, shows up, vendors and all the organizers who put on air shows, they go to this event. And, we announce our show schedule for, I think it's like 2 years, a year, 2 years in advance. So it is from day one, you're launching, you're learning your safety, collateral duty roles. And then you're also now at that same time planning for the coming 30 some air shows that are about to, be on your schedule. So, the point of me kind of regaling all of that is it is very challenging in a regular year to kind of get ahead. And I think there are a lot of really, our inclination as PAOs is we want to have infrastructure documents. We want to have a baseline that all of our other communication efforts can grow off of. And, this role in particular, there is not a down period for you to work on those things, right? So, I mean, if you're going to put together an infrastructure document, a historical sort of guide on, hey, this is where we were, when are you going to do your media audit, right? Like the media audit takes 100 hours at least to kind of cull through clips and log everything on a spreadsheet. So it is historically been challenging to do that. But that said, there was this down year, right, of COVID. And I say down because we still had other missions to execute. But I mean, if you're in a normal show season, you're putting together those infrastructure documents, your standing PAG, your annual comp plan, social media plan in your free time, right? So if you are working 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and you only have so many hours to call home or work out or the things that we do in our personal time to recharge, grocery shop, you're going to have to tap into that personal time to then create your infrastructure documents. And sometimes it doesn't, and that's not just on the Blue Angels. I've seen that when I've tried to go to a ship on a detachment with NPACE. And so, because this year was an unusual year and we didn't have that show season, we did have some extra time in our shop to put forth on creating an infrastructure document. So, right now we're about an 80% solution to about 40-page communication strategy, which goes through and breaks down, that big media analysis that I shared with you earlier, and, highlights of what historically the team has gleaned coverage from, and then, lining that up with where we want to be. And, under evaluation, that evaluation phase, figuring out what's working and what's meeting those end state objectives as we go along. So, and then from there, we can shape our annual comp plan, our public affairs guidance, all of our messaging points, and also referencing the historical documents and whatnot. So you asked what we've been doing to pass down to the next generation of Blue Angels PAOs, and it is that infrastructure document which kind of shares where we have been, where we are, and what we want to achieve. And then in a regular show season, when someone is just hitting the ground running, they don't have to stay awake to learn this stuff. They read the document.
Yep.
And can execute accordingly.
I love it. Just love it, Chelsea. I always say every single command needs an overarching comm strategy. I've seen some people get it signed by their CO and have it as an instruction of 5720, which I found to be a very great best practice, that when I go back to the fleet and do those types of jobs, I will have one hopefully like that. But you need something. You need something that's just this overarching strategy that says, here's where we are. This is our role. And what that, and again, I love your approach about how you sat down with your CO, you sat down with your higher headquarters PAOs, you did your laterals, your lefts and your rights, and you did this, very holistic environmental scan before you wrote that strategy. just so that you could see what the expectations were. Then you also got together with your crew members to say, well, what do you guys think a good PAO and a good a campaign, a media campaign or a communications campaign looks like? And once you get all of that, that's when you sit down and you build that plan and you build that foundation. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the greatest thing ever. And it's going to get edited and it's going to get changed. And it's going to, as it moves hands, and every year maybe it might get updated, but at least you have something to go off of. I created that at my last command, and it'll be a best practice I will carry with me wherever I go from this point forward. In fact, I mean, you even do it for your own things. You have a plan. You put it on paper. So it's just a great way forward and good best practice. So with that, we're about 20 minutes till the top of the hour, and I'm going to use this opportunity now to turn it over to our small group who've joined us, and this will also be available as a recording later. But for the people who were able to take the time to join us today, are there any questions from any of you guys?
I don't want to step on anyone's toes, so I'll just jump in here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Hear you great.
Okay, great. So sometimes my AirPods act up. My name is Danica. I'm an MC on the reserve side of things. I just dropped a DCO package and I'm hoping to pick up this cycle, so prayers up. But I work for Escambia County and I'm a public information officer. So I would love to connect with you, ma'am, and just, stay connected. I'm newer to the county, but I did have a question in regard to some of the setting up a campaign. You did touch on it a little bit about some of your strategies with RPI and that sort of thing. Were there any campaigns like hashtags or anything that you leveraged in your role, or and how did you go about that practice of a targeted campaign? Maybe it was to garner interest with folks applying to be Blue Angels pilots. Have you worked on anything like that in your career with Blue Angels, or is that something you can touch on a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Danica. I appreciate it. And I'd love to connect offline here as far as, just your presence and where you are and kind of your career progression. So absolutely. And with regard to your question, not specifically here with the Blue Angels. So to be completely honest, social media is not my strong point, and it is definitely the next evolution of our infrastructure documents that we have in place. So a lot of it right now is identifying our audiences and their various information needs. And we do have various campaigns that offer behind the scene looks at, what the team is doing. And we'll use some very, basic hashtags. But as far as deepening that engagement and being more interactive with fans, we have not utilized those tools specifically for the Blue Angels yet. That is on our horizon, likely for next year. And I know that's not the right answer. We got to be able to flex in the environment that we currently have. But as far as hashtag use, it is, largely centered around, milestones. For us last year, it was America Strong. And, we had the hashtag around that and encouraged folks to use that and then reposting their content. So, relying on crowdsourced content to share a story. But that's about as advanced as we've gotten. And, would love to, maybe in our follow-up conversation, talk a little bit more about what we have on the horizon and future planning and whatnot, but definitely an area we're looking to beef up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for all that you guys do. I love seeing your posts come across I see things all the time on social media, but I was just wondering, is there a campaign? But I'm sure with COVID, that wasn't top priority. So I just wanted to check in on that. Thanks for your presentation.
Oh, of course. And it's definitely, an enormous group effort here. I mean, this public affairs shop they're top in the fleet here. And we definitely would not be able to do the things we're able to do without their skills. So they're a fantastic group.
Yeah, we had an MC when I was on Nimitz get accepted to the Blue Angels, and it's an amazing opportunity for the MCs as well as for the PAOs. So does anybody else have any questions before we close the call? Or comments, anything?
Hey, Chelsea, I'll chime in. I guess going back to the infrastructure conversation, how much of that infrastructure existed when you showed up, and then how much do you anticipate it would need to change or be added to each additional season or each new season?
So when I arrived, there was a good amount of historical sort of messaging guidance. So things that, when we've responded to various crisis situations and messaging priorities, things that we do every single year. So when we're, bringing on new hires, or we're, announcing, our air show season, there was a very good plan in place for executing those milestones. And so very fortunately, I was able to build off of that and place all of those items into a more and I keep saying it, but just infrastructure document. So getting it all laid out so that the next person after me, if you need to spend more time, learning your collateral duties, or just, being able to manage your inbox effectively with all of the different correspondence that comes up, and learning how to be a Blue Angel, then you could open up this plan and an example, calendar from years prior, and just follow the recipe for your first year. But I would pass this information down with the 100% expectation that this is going to be improved upon with the next public affairs officer, the next public affairs shop. There is always room for improvement. I am by no means an expert, but this is kind of a culmination of the research I conducted. And, with the Blue Angels in particular, it's an organizational decision for how the Blue Angels are presented to the public, right? Is there's certainly, more feedback that comes in this organization than you would receive in a normal fleet command. And that's going to change with every cycle of public affairs officer and every new team. So, it's supposed to be a base, but definitely the expectation that is going to evolve and improve in following iterations.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was emphasizing before too, is that you just have to put something to paper. I mean, me and Julie Holland would joke about that when I was on TR. She's just like, pen to paper, just write something. You can make it better, and it will come out once you start to write it down and structure it. So that's awesome that you've already got something going for that, for your relief. Any other questions before I turn it over to Chelsea for any final thoughts? All right. Oh, nope. Okay. So over to you, Chelsea. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I've learned a lot. I find that every time we do this, there's something new I take away, and your description of environmental scanning is really going to stick with me. I don't think I really thought about it that way in terms of a communication audit, but you captured that really well, and appreciate that, among every other thing that you did to describe this program. So amazing. So over to you.
No, thank you for that. And thanks for this opportunity. I mean, this is definitely helping with my own public affairs speaking stuff. And, I definitely will be watching this for my own debriefing points, but I guess big takeaways, as far as just things that I wanted to leave you guys with, that, if you're interested in being a PAO for the Blue Angels, or just little nuggets that I've learned along the way that I found valuable, is utilize every experience, or you use every experience, all your varied experiences that got you to this point, step on those and build off of those unique perspectives, to shape your work that you're doing now. So don't leave your last command at the door. Bring those experiences with you. And, whether you're a SWO, or you were an aviator, or, you were a civilian prior, take all of that experience and figure out a way to, shape that into something helpful for your current role. That was hugely helpful for this. Sweat the small stuff. If you're particularly looking to be this team, the way and this is one of the things that our pilots always say when they're doing their, talks with the different students. And I love it so much because it's so true, is there are little things that we all do every single day. And the way that is something that I'm going to take away into my next, command, is there are little points throughout every single day, every email that you send, every engagement that you participate in, that you can take a little bit closer of a look at. And, am I making someone's day easier? Am I making someone's day a little bit more challenging? What value am I providing through this interaction? And there's always an opportunity to, improve that interaction, and the results end up being, incredibly valuable as far as relationship building goes. And you tend to get the more results what you're looking for as your output. And then the last big one is the importance of leveraging your network and your relationships that you've built in the fleet. I have had I call probably 3 to 5 mentors and PAOs every single day since I have taken this job, and asking them for advice, asking for feedback, looking to coordinate an event. In this role alone, in the past year and a half, we've coordinated with Second Fleet, Third Fleet, Sixth Fleet, Seventh Fleet, different COCOMs, the recruiting districts, every single state that we've had an air show last year or this year, coordinating with their civic entities. So relying on the regional offices, so reserves, tons of folks, and just being able to be comfortable with leveraging your network and tapping into the tools available to you. So I think those are my big sort of lessons learned, takeaways, and but anyway, if you're interested in applying for Be a Blue Angel, you can visit us at blueangels.navy.mil/join, and the nav admin for more information on the application process is 033-TAC21, and applications are due April 30th of this year.
Awesome, Chelsea. That I am inspired just listening to you. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone else who participated today in the call by joining us. We do these calls every month. Maybe one day we'll meet in person again when COVID is no longer a thing. But for now, we do have an idea that's brewing for next month for the April session. I'm trying to get a local reporter from the Virginia area, because I would like to talk about best ways to pitch media opportunities. So if you have a reporter, I have one lead right now, but still tracking down who the right person is to talk to that. But I think that should be a very good conversation. Like I said, there will be a recording. I will have the link posted onto the 3 Facebook groups that I put this on, as well as in a follow-up email. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. So right